You've probably heard me speak to the fact that it is getting harder and harder to respond to comments and things of that nature, but I do read them, at least the ones that are sent to me by our producers. And the other day, someone asked me, I thought, a great question, which is, what is remorse? I mean, what should I look for in my partner or spouse if I'm trying to see, are they remorseful? Is there genuine remorse for their choices? Because without remorse, it does make the entire process more difficult. It does make the betrayed question, should I stay? Why do I want to stay? There's no remorse. Or, what does remorse look like? So today, I want to give you some ideas about what remorse looks like, but also define it and really help paint a picture for what we as unfaithful should be doing to communicate that we are remorseful for our choices. I think one of the best descriptions of remorse is not just being sorry and not just apologizing, but being sorry, taking ownership, apologizing for the heart that was behind our choices, for the mindset, for the heart approach that was going on in us when we, in this situation, were unfaithful or were acting out. You see, it's not enough just to be sorry. I'm sorry. It's a good start. It doesn't really fix anything. What we're talking about today is moving beyond I'm sorry into a remorseful, if you come from faith or spirituality, it might be repentant mentality or approach or mindset. You see, when you are experiencing remorse, you're not just sorry for having an affair. You're sorry for the entitlement or the self-rejection or the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, the pride, whatever it is. You're sorry for that heart attitude which led you to act out, have an affair, be entangled in whatever you're entangled in for whatever amount of time you've been entangled in that behavior. And oh, by the way, there is a sense of remorse that will run pretty deep when there's been a long-term addiction or affair. At some level, there is a time release variable to our remorse as we become healthier and healthier early on, as we become more aware of what our choices have done to our betrayed spouse. There should be a greater sense of remorse going on inside of us. Here's a rough draft of what it looked like for me. Initially, I was very defensive. I was very angry. I was concentrating on blaming Samantha and making her the reason why I acted out. Not too long, about maybe 2 weeks or so, I went and met with an individual that became a great mentor to me, and there was a great deal of remorse that came. For me, it was very spiritual, it was very deep, and I came home from that trip to Samantha and expressed a great deal of remorse, a great deal of awareness for what my choices had done to her and what it was like to be her. Then we started to get help, and it struggled a bit. There wasn't an insane amount of remorse, but there was remorse. And then we found Rick, and we started to do some very specific recovery work, and then more remorse came. And there was a better verbiage to the remorse that I was feeling. There was greater description on my part for what I had done to Samantha because I was getting healthier, doing expert infidelity specific recovery work, learning new ways of displaying my remorse, my fear, my pain, my sorrow, my sadness for what I had done to her. There was a progression to it. And that probably was about a year-long or so process. Now, I will tell you that as we have progressed, that remorse has become more mature, more understanding, more compelling, because I don't live in this great shadow of I'm just a doormat. It's been 15 years. I'm always going to be a doormat. I heard somebody say today, it's always going to be difficult in your marriage as long as there's been infidelity. That's not true at all. My marriage has difficult times now, mostly because of how to pay for college, how to navigate through some mood swings, how to deal with some debt that's come back to haunt us, how to manage responsibilities. I have not mentioned infidelity because by the grace of God, there hasn't been any for 15 years. Sure, we've had ups and downs, but we are not stuck, paralyzed, living under the shadow of infidelity. Here are some emblems, if you will, of remorse. Here's what was not present early on in my life and began to take shape as I got the right kind of help. If you're an unfaithful, here are some indicating factors that you can begin to mull over, to begin to process if you want to display a remorseful heart, a remorseful mindset to your betrayed spouse or partner. Initially, there should be a sense of humility. I mean, let's face it, you're in the situation because you as an unfaithful have had an affair or an addiction. A defensive posture, an angry posture does not display humility. It displays that it was your spouse's fault that you have been doing what you're doing. And while I'm sure your spouse is not perfect, at the end of the day, you didn't have to do what you were doing. And so humility is key. If you want to be perceived as someone who has genuine remorse, there has to be an awareness of the fact that, you know what? You have an issue. You have had an issue. And now is not the time for you to be arrogant. There's nothing to be arrogant about. Your humility is going to be pivotal for the safety of your betrayed partner. Number two is there should be some patience. I mean, early on I was so impatient, and then I got the right help, and then a mentor really took me to the woodshed and had a very definitive conversation with me one day. And I will tell you, as I come from faith, there was the heavy hand of conviction that came upon me that I started to see things in a whole new light. If you don't come from faith, there's an awareness, there's a humility, there's a moment where you go, you know, we wouldn't be here if I didn't do what I did. And so one of the greatest gifts that I can give to my betrayed spouse is patience. You see, being patient with the process, patient with their hurt, patient with their pain, their flooding, their triggers, their inability to put words to their emotions. As you are patient with them, you are displaying compassion to them. When you are impatient with them, you are displaying pride, arrogance, and then refusal to own what you have done, and a refusal to own the fact that you have put them in the position that they're in. So patience will absolutely have to be mandatory for your recovery work. The next one is, and I don't know another way to say it that's more spot on, which is being willing to endure the consequences that you are having to endure because of your choices. You see, when you are willing to endure maybe a temporary separation, maybe some mood swings, maybe some flooding, you know by this time what you're enduring. As you're willing to endure it with a compassionate approach, you are displaying a sense of remorse for what you've done. Alternatively, if you constantly fight back and constantly are refusing to embrace the consequences and embrace what has happened to you, you're not displaying safety. You're not displaying remorse. You're proving time and time again that you're not safe for your betrayed spouse to be around. Next is a willingness to do whatever it takes to try and save the relationship. Now, it's easy to say that, but maybe you've been faced with the fact that your spouse or partner says, look, I really need a temporary separation. I don't know if that's good or bad for your situation, but if your spouse is wanting it, if you rage against it, and if you constantly attack it, even if you disagree with it, and even if there's good grounds to disagree with it, it's probably not going to go well. But the fact that you're willing to do whatever it takes, spend any amount of money, Travel anywhere that you need to travel. Read any book that you need to read. Watch these crazy videos from me that your spouse maybe keeps throwing at you. But a willingness to do whatever it takes displays genuine remorse. So the counterpoint is, if you're unwilling to put a tracker on your phone, if you're unwilling to answer questions, if you're unwilling to talk about it, it doesn't show that you're truly remorseful. Finally, when you're remorseful, you are safe. Now, I will tell you, my betrayed spouse, Samantha, oftentimes accused me of being sorry for getting caught, not being sorry for what I had done. And how I was able to work through that was giving it time, but giving consistency to my efforts and my mentality and my approach and my recovery work, and being patient with the fact that she said that a lot early on. And as I wasn't constantly defensive and arguing against it and just kind of letting her be angry or letting her be sad and not trying to fix her, as I was able to do that, slowly but surely, she stopped saying that because she was seeing that I was consistent in the way that I was handling it. Early on, not so much. Probably 5, 6, 8 months to several years later, yes. Consistency. Being able to endure what is coming your way, knowing that it's not what you want, but having a heart to say, look, how can I be safe for you at work, when we're apart, when I'm at home, when we're traveling, when I'm traveling? What can I do to make you feel safe? I want to go overboard in creating safety for you. And you say, well, how does safety connect with remorse? Because when you are remorseful, you are concerned for your spouse's heart and mind and security. So you're willing and wanting to do everything that you can to no longer jeopardize that and help them minimize their triggers, minimize their pain, minimize their hurt. You want to be safe because you know if they can feel safe, you're doing something right.